I discovered my deceased grandmother's secret life, and now my entire family is falling apart. I don't even know where to start with this, but I need to get it out somewhere because I feel like I'm losing my mind. Sorry in advance for the length, but holy shit, this has been the craziest 2 weeks of my life. So here's the background. My grandmother Dorothy passed away 6 months ago at 81. Heart attack, totally unexpected. She was my favorite person in the world. Taught me how to bake, let me stay with her every summer growing up, never judged me when I dropped out of college for a year to find myself. Spoiler. I just played a lot of video games and worked at Target. She was just steady, you know, like the one person in my chaotic family who always had her shit together. My parents have been dragging their feet on clearing out her house, but the realtor finally put the pressure on. The market's good right now and there's apparently some developer interested in buying up the whole street. So last Monday, I drove down to help them pack everything up. My mom was being weird about it, kept tearing up over random stuff like grandma's collection of ceramic birds, which, let's be honest, were ugly as hell, and insisting we keep things that nobody wanted. I got stuck with the bedroom closets. Grandma Dorothy was a bit of a hoarder, not like TV show level, but she kept everything. Shoeboxes full of greeting cards from the 1970s, receipt books, every single church bulletin. I was about 3 hours into sorting when I noticed something off about the back wall of her main closet. There was a built-in shelf unit, the kind with that cheap laminate backing. But when I was moving shoeboxes, I heard a hollow sound. I pressed on the panel and it flexed weirdly. My grandfather built most of the furniture in that house himself, and he was meticulous. This didn't match his work. I pulled out my phone flashlight and looked closer. There were tiny hinges on one side, almost invisible. My heart started racing. I don't know why, but something felt significant about this. I worked my fingers around the edge and popped the panel open. Behind it was a metal lockbox, maybe the size of a large shoebox, covered in dust. It was heavy. I pulled it out, tried the latch, locked, obviously. I should have told my parents right then. I didn't. Instead, I took it to my car, told my mom I needed to grab lunch, and drove to a McDonald's parking lot like some kind of wannabe spy. I sat there for 20 minutes just staring at this box, eating stress fries. Then I remembered Grandma kept a junk drawer full of random keys in the kitchen. I drove back, made some excuse about wanting to check if she had any old recipes in her cookbooks, and grabbed the whole drawer. Fourth key I tried, the box opened. Inside was stuff that made absolutely no sense. A stack of letters, maybe 40 or 50 of them, tied with string. They were all addressed to D, and signed J. But here's the weird part. They were in English, but scrambled somehow. Like every word was shifted or substituted. I'm a graphic designer, not a codebreaker, so I just stared at them confused. Photographs. So many photographs. All from what looked like the 60s and 70s based on the fashion and the faded Kodak paper. My grandmother was in most of them, but she looked different. Her hair was styled differently. She was wearing clothes I'd never seen in any family album. And she was with people I absolutely did not recognize. There was this one man who appeared in maybe a dozen photos, tall, dark hair, handsome in that Don Draper way. In one photo, they were holding hands. A passport. I flipped it open and there was my grandmother's face, no question, but the name said, Diane Morrison. Born 1943 in Portland, Oregon. My grandmother was Dorothy Brennan, née Coleman, born 1943 in Toledo, Ohio. I checked the stamp dates. This passport was used throughout the 1970s. Last stamp was 1981. News clippings, all from the same Chicago Tribune edition from October 1972. They were about a woman named Carol Jensen, 29, who disappeared without a trace from her apartment. Police suspected foul play. Husband was questioned but never charged. The articles had portions highlighted in faded yellow marker. A safety deposit box key with a tag that said, First National Bank of Hartford, and a number. I sat in that McDonald's parking lot until it got dark, going through everything again and again. Then I did something stupid. I didn't tell anyone. I took the box home to my apartment, told my parents I wasn't feeling great and would come back to help tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at the photos. There was one of Diane, I guess that's what I should call her, sitting on a beach with the dark-haired man, both of them laughing. On the back, someone had written, Atlantic City, July 1970. My grandparents supposedly met in 1965 and got married in 1967. My dad was born in 1969. The timeline doesn't work. I tried to decode one of the letters. It took me until 3 a.m., but I figured out it was a simple substitution cipher. A becomes C, B becomes D, etc. Once I cracked it, I transcribed this. My darling D, I cannot keep living like this. Every day I wake up and you're not beside me feels like drowning. I know what we agreed. I know why it has to be this way. But I'm asking you one more time, come with me. We can disappear, really disappear this time. I have enough money saved. We could go to Canada, or even Europe. I don't care where, as long as we're together. I love you more than I've ever loved anything, and I'm terrified that if we keep waiting, we'll run out of time. Please, just think about it. All my love, Jay. Read it, I threw up. Literally ran to my bathroom and puked. This was my grandmother. My sweet, church-going, made the best apple pie grandmother who loved my grandfather, who passed in 2018. So much that she kept his reading glasses on his nightstand for years after he died. I called in sick to work the next day. Then I did what any rational person would do. I went down a research rabbit hole. I found Carol Jensen's disappearance in newspaper archives. She was a bank teller in Chicago, married to Robert Jensen, an accountant. They had no children. One day in October 1972, she just didn't come home from work. Her car was found in the grocery store parking lot, keys still in the ignition, groceries in the trunk. No body was ever found. The case went cold. I also found out there's still a First National Bank in Hartford, Connecticut. That's a 9-hour drive from where I live in Pennsylvania. Here's where I made another bad decision. I told my younger sister Melissa. Melissa's 25, works in marketing, and has never been able to keep a secret in her entire life. But she's also the only person in our family who's consistently been on my side about things, so I figured I could trust her. We met at a Starbucks halfway between our apartments. I showed her everything. What the actual fuck, she said, which was pretty much the only appropriate response. She picked up the passport. This is Grandma. This is 100% her. I know. Why would she have a fake passport? I don't think it's fake. I think it's another identity. Melissa started going through the photos. She paused on one. A group shot of my grandmother, Diane, with 3 other women at what looked like a restaurant. They were dressed up, holding cocktails, clearly having a good time. She looks happy, Melissa said quietly. Like, really happy. I don't think I ever saw Grandma look this free. That hit me hard because she was right. In all our family photos, Grandma had this pleasant, composed smile. But in these secret photos, she was radiating joy. We need to find out what's in that safety deposit box, Melissa said. It's in Connecticut, and I'm pretty sure you need ID to access one of those, which I don't have. We have her death certificate though. And you look like her. You could pass for a relative. Just say you're her granddaughter handling the estate. I want to be clear that I knew this was a terrible idea. But I was in too deep already, and the thought of not knowing what was in that box was making me insane. We decided to drive to Hartford that Saturday. I told my parents I was going to a design conference in Boston. Melissa told hers she was visiting a college friend. The lies were already piling up. The drive took longer than expected because we hit traffic in New York. Melissa spent most of it trying to decode more letters on her phone while I drove. We talked about what we knew about Grandma's life, trying to find holes or inconsistencies. Didn't Grandma and Grandpa move to Pennsylvania right after Dad was born? Melissa asked. Yeah, 1970. Grandpa got a job at the steel plant. But these photos in Atlantic City are from 1970. And there are stamps in this passport from 1971, 1973, 1974. Maybe she traveled without Grandpa? For years? With a fake name? Come on. She had a point. We got to Hartford around 2 p.m. on Saturday. First National Bank was in a bland brick building downtown. I was sweating through my shirt as we walked in. There was one teller and an older woman at a desk who looked like a manager. "Help you ladies?" the manager asked. Her name tag said, Barbara. "Hi, yes, my grandmother recently passed away and we found a safety deposit box key in her belongings. We're trying to handle her estate." I put the key on the desk, along with a copy of Grandma's death certificate that I'd forged the name on to say, Diane Morrison, instead of Dorothy Brennan. "I'm not proud of this." Barbara looked at the certificate, then at the key. "I'm sorry for your loss. Let me look this up." She typed on her computer for what felt like an eternity. Box 447, rented to Diane Morrison since 1982. Last payment was. She scrolled, April of this year. My heart stopped. This year? As in 2024? Yes. Paid annually, always in cash. Prepaid through 2026, actually. Melissa and I exchanged looks. Grandma had been paying for this box, in cash, under a fake name, for over 40 years. Including the months before she died. "I'll need to see your ID and have you sign some forms," Barbara said. I pulled out my license with shaking hands. She barely glanced at it, just had me sign a bunch of paperwork. Then she led us to the vault. The box was bigger than I expected, about the size of a carry-on suitcase. Barbara left us alone in a small private room. Melissa grabbed my hand. "You okay?" she whispered. "No. Are you?" "Absolutely not." "Open it." Inside was multiple bundles of cash. I'm talking stacks of $100 bills, bound with rubber bands. We counted later, $47,000. More letters, these ones in regular English, addressed to Dorothy, at a P.O. box in Pennsylvania. All from J, spanning from 1982 to 2019. The most recent one was from just 5 years ago. A birth certificate for James Daniel Morrison, born April 3, 1971, in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Mother, Diane Morrison. Father, Jonathan Reeves. Dozens more photos, these ones more recent. They showed a boy growing up, birthday parties, school photos, graduations. In the later photos, he was a grown man. He looked exactly like the dark-haired man from the earlier photos. A single photo of my grandmother, maybe from the early 2000s, standing next to the dark-haired man, now gray-haired, and the younger man who looked like him. They were at what looked like a restaurant. On the back, James's 30th birthday. I wish I could have been there for all of them. J. A letter addressed to whoever finds this. It was dated January 2024, just 8 months ago. It was in my grandmother's handwriting. Melissa and I just sat there. Neither of us could speak. Finally, I opened the letter. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely read it. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I've spent the last 43 years living with two truths that couldn't coexist, and I'm so tired. I don't know who you are. Maybe you're one of my grandchildren. Maybe you're a bank employee. Maybe you're Jonathan or James. Whoever you are, you deserve to know the real story. My name is Dorothy Brennan now, but I was born Diane Morrison. In 1969, I was 26 years old and working as a secretary at an insurance firm in Chicago. I was married to a man named Henry Morrison. He was not a good man. He drank. He had a temper. But divorce wasn't really an option in my world, not then. I met Jonathan Reeves at a conference in 1968. He was kind. He was gentle. He made me laugh. We fell in love, even though we both knew it was impossible. We tried to stop. We couldn't. When I got pregnant in 1970, I knew the baby was Jonathan's. Henry and I hadn't. Well, use your imagination. I told Jonathan, and he wanted us to run away together. But I was afraid. Henry had connections, family with money. I didn't think I could hide from him. Then I met Carol Jensen. Carol worked at my bank. We'd chat sometimes in line. She mentioned once that she was unhappy in her marriage, that her husband was controlling and she felt trapped. We became friends. She told me things I should have reported, that her husband hit her, that she was terrified of him, that she'd thought about running away but had nowhere to go. I told her about Jonathan. About the baby. About my own fear of Henry. And Carol said something I'll never forget. What if we could both disappear? It took us 3 months to plan. Carol had a friend who could get documents. I never asked how. We created new identities for each other. I became Dorothy Coleman. Carol became Diane Morrison. We traded lives, in a way. On October 15, 1972, Carol left her groceries in her car and drove to Atlantic City, where she'd start over as Diane Morrison. I was supposed to meet Jonathan in Toledo, Ohio, where I'd start over as Dorothy Coleman, and we'd raise our son together. Except Carol never made it to Atlantic City. I got a call from Jonathan 2 days later. He'd been watching the news. Carol's car, the one we'd traded, was found in Carol's town, keys in the ignition, groceries still in the trunk. Carol Jensen was officially a missing person, which meant Diane Morrison was missing. Jonathan and I panicked. We didn't know what had happened to Carol. Her husband Robert was the obvious suspect, but we couldn't go to the police without revealing our own plan. And if Robert had done something to Carol, he might come looking for Diane Morrison next. So I did what I had to do. I met a man named Thomas Brennan in Toledo. He was a good man, lonely, looking for companionship. We married quickly, too quickly. I was already 5 months pregnant but told him it was his. He believed me because he wanted to believe me. I gave birth to James in April 1971, but I told everyone, including Thomas, that his name was Michael and he was born in November 1970. I'd faked those 3 months. Jonathan was with me when James was really born, then I gave our son to him to raise. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Thomas became Tom. We moved to Pennsylvania. We had another baby, your father or grandfather, depending on who's reading this. I tried to be a good wife. I tried to love Tom the way he deserved. I did love him, in a way. But not the way I loved Jonathan. For 43 years, I lived 2 lives. I visited Jonathan and James twice a year, always with elaborate excuses. I sent money when I could. That's what the cash is for James's future. I kept the photographs hidden. I wrote letters I could never send. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to Carol Jensen. I think about her every single day. I hope she found peace somehow, somewhere. I hope her husband paid for whatever he did to her. I hope you can forgive me. I hope you understand that I did the best I could in an impossible situation. The man you knew as your grandmother or great-grandmother loved you with her whole heart. That was always real. That was always true. Jonathan's address is at the bottom of this letter. If you want to know more, he can tell you. He's a good man. He deserved better than what I could give him. All my love. Dorothy, Diane. I finished reading and looked at Melissa. She was crying silently, tears just streaming down her face. She had another kid, Melissa whispered. She had a whole other family. The address at the bottom of the letter was in Cape May, New Jersey. We left the bank in a daze. Didn't even talk about the money, just shoved it all back in the box and left it there. We sat in my car in the parking lot for probably an hour, just trying to process. Finally, Melissa said, "We have to go to Cape May." That's insane. Everything about this is insane. We can't just know this and not do anything. What are we going to do? Knock on this guy's door and say, "Hey, our grandmother wrote you love letters for 50 years. Also surprise, we have a secret uncle." I mean, yeah, kind of? I wanted to say no. I wanted to put everything back in the box, return the key, and pretend I never found any of this. But I couldn't. The need to know was like a physical ache. "It's only 2 hours from here," Melissa said. "We could go right now." We went right then. Cape May is one of those picture-perfect shore towns, all Victorian houses and bed and breakfasts. The address led us to a small blue cottage about 3 blocks from the beach. There was a wind chime on the porch and flower boxes in the windows. A silver Honda was parked in the driveway. We sat outside for 20 minutes trying to decide what to do. Finally, I just got out of the car and walked up to the door before I could chicken out. Melissa scrambled to follow me. I rang the doorbell. The man who answered was probably in his mid-80s, tall but stooped, with white hair and kind eyes. He looked at me, then at Melissa, and his face went pale. "Oh my God," he said. "You look just like her. Are you Jonathan Reeves?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "I'm Emily. This is Melissa. We're Dorothy's granddaughters. We found your letters. And the safety deposit box." Jonathan gripped the doorframe like his legs might give out. "She's gone, isn't she? Dorothy." I felt it, somehow, but I didn't know for sure. 6 months ago. Heart attack. He closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. "Come in, please. I'll make tea." Jonathan's house was small but immaculate. The walls were covered with photos, and I recognized so many faces from the ones we'd found. James as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. And in many of them, my grandmother, looking happy in a way I'd never seen. She came to visit 4 times a year for the last decade, Jonathan said as he poured tea with shaking hands. Before that, it was twice a year. I cherished every minute, every phone call, every letter. "Tell us everything," Melissa said. "Please." So he did. He told us about meeting Diane, Dorothy in 1968. About falling in love despite both being married. About the pregnancy and the desperate plan with Carol Jensen. About the terror when Carol disappeared and the decades of secrecy that followed. "I raised James alone," he said. Told him his mother had died in childbirth, which felt like the kindest lie. But when he turned 18, Dorothy and I decided he deserved the truth. He was angry for years. He wouldn't speak to either of us. "Does he still?" I asked. "He lives in Boston. He's a pediatrician. Married, 2 kids of his own. He forgave us, eventually. Understood that we were young and scared and did the best we could." Jonathan smiled sadly. He got to meet Dorothy properly about 10 years ago. She came to his daughter's baptism, told everyone she was an old family friend. It was the happiest I'd ever seen her. "So we have cousins we never knew about," Melissa said quietly. "James has wondered about you. About his half-siblings, his nieces and nephews. But Dorothy was firm. She couldn't risk destroying the family she'd built. Your grandfather never knew. Your father never knew. What about Carol Jensen?" I asked. "Did you ever find out what happened to her?" Jonathan's face darkened. "We hired a private investigator in 1985, paid him under the table to look into it. He found out that Robert Jensen died in 1980. The investigator's theory was that Robert killed Carol that day, probably in a fit of rage when she tried to leave him. Her body was never found. The case is still open." We sat in silence for a while. Then Jonathan got up and brought out a photo album. "These are pictures Dorothy could never keep. Christmas cards from James. Photos from his medical school graduation. His wedding. Every moment she had to miss. We went through the album together, this record of a secret life, a secret love, a secret son. In every photo where my grandmother appeared, she looked more herself than I'd ever seen her. She loved you all," Jonathan said firmly. "I want you to know that. She loved Tom, in her way. She loved your father and your aunts and uncles. She loved all of you grandchildren so much. But part of her was always here, with James and me. She lived 2 lives and gave everything to both of them. Before we left, Jonathan gave me a box. She asked me to keep this, in case anyone ever found out. She wanted you to have it. Inside was a handwritten cookbook. All my grandmother's recipes that she'd apparently never shared with the Pennsylvania family. A separate set of recipes for her secret life. There was also a letter addressed to me specifically. How did she know it would be me who found everything?" I asked. Jonathan smiled. "She said you were the curious one. The one who noticed things. She said if anyone was going to discover her secret, it would be you." Melissa and I drove home in the dark. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? When I got back to my apartment around midnight, I opened the letter addressed to me. "Dear Emily, if you're reading this, you've gone on quite the journey. I'm sorry for that. Sorry for the confusion and the secrets and the lies. But I'm also grateful that someone finally knows the truth. I need you to decide something now. You can tell your family about all of this, about Jonathan, about James, about the life I kept hidden. You have every right to do that. It's your story now, too. Or you can keep the secret, the way I did. Let Tom rest with his dignity intact. Let your father remember his mother as the woman who raised him. Let the family stay intact. There's no right answer, sweetheart. Both choices come with costs. But here's what I want you to know. I don't regret any of it. Not loving Jonathan, not having James, not building a life with Tom. I lived fully, even if I lived in divided pieces. I loved completely, even if I loved impossibly. You're so much like me, Emily. You feel things deeply. You want everything to matter. You're brave enough to look at hard truths. That's why I knew you'd be the one. Be kind to yourself in whatever you decide. And know that I loved you. Every version of me loved every version of you, across every life I lived. Your grandma, Dorothy, Diane. I sat on my apartment floor and cried for maybe an hour straight. This was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Melissa and I have been living in this weird bubble of secret knowledge. We went back to help pack up the house and had to pretend everything was normal while our mom cried over old curtains and our dad argued with the realtor about closing costs. My Aunt Susan found Grandma's wedding album and everyone gathered around to look at pictures of young Dorothy and Tom. And I had to bite my tongue because I kept thinking about those Atlantic City photos, about the life she really wanted. Yesterday, my dad asked me if I wanted Grandma's old jewelry box, and I said yes, and when he gave it to me, I saw that the lining had been altered. There's another hidden compartment, and I haven't opened it yet. I don't know if I want to. The house closes escrow in 10 days. James, I looked him up, found him on LinkedIn, is giving a presentation at a medical conference in Philadelphia next month. The conference center is 12 minutes from my apartment. Melissa wants us to go, to introduce ourselves. I don't know if that's brave or selfish. My mom mentioned last night that she's thinking about writing a memoir about her childhood, about growing up with Dorothy as a mother. She was such a constant presence, Mom said. So steady and reliable. I want to honor that. And I wanted to scream, to tell her that Grandma was the opposite of steady, that she was complicated and messy and living a double life, that she gave away a baby and loved a man who wasn't her husband and pretended to be someone else for over 40 years. But would that honor her? Or would it just destroy the memory of the woman who taught my mom how to bake bread and held her when she cried and showed up for every school play and dance recital? I keep thinking about what Jonathan said. She gave everything to both lives. But that's not really true, is it? She gave part of herself to each life. James grew up without a mother. My dad grew up with a mother who was only half present. Jonathan loved a woman he could only have in stolen moments. Tom was married to someone who was always somewhere else in her heart. Everyone got pieces. No one got all of her. Is that tragic or is that just life? Edit. Holy shit, I did not expect this response. Thank you to everyone who's commented and messaged. I'm trying to read everything but I'm honestly overwhelmed. A few people asked about the money in the safety deposit box. We haven't touched it. I don't know if we should give it to James, or split it with the estate, or what. It feels wrong to spend it but also wrong to leave it there. Someone asked if I've looked up Carol Jensen's case. I have, extensively. There are some true crime forums that covered it. The general consensus is that her husband Robert killed her, but without a body, they couldn't prosecute. He moved to Florida in 1973 and died of liver disease in 1980. Carol's family, she had a sister, spent years searching for her. The sister died in 2019, never knowing what happened. That makes me feel sick. A lot of people are saying I should tell my family. Just as many are saying I shouldn't. I appreciate all the perspectives, genuinely. Update, 3 days later. I need to add to this because something happened last night that's changed everything. My mom called me crying, which scared the shit out of me because she never cries. She said she was going through Grandma's closet one more time and found an envelope taped to the inside of the top shelf, behind where the hat boxes had been. It was addressed to my mom specifically. Mom asked me to come over immediately. When I got there, she was sitting at the kitchen table with my dad, both of them looking shell-shocked. The envelope was open in front of them. Your grandmother, Mom started, then couldn't continue. Dad pushed the letter toward me. Just read it. It was from Grandma, dated March 2024, 2 months before she died. My dearest Anne, I need to tell you something I should have told you 40 years ago. If you're reading this, I'm gone, And I hope that gives you the freedom to understand rather than the burden of confronting me. Your father was a good man. He loved you so much. But he wasn't perfect, and neither was I. Our marriage was built on a foundation of mutual need rather than passion, and I made peace with that. What I never made peace with was the piece of myself I had to lock away to be his wife. There's a man named Jonathan Reeves who has been part of my life since before you were born. We loved each other in a way that defied the rules of our time and place. I don't expect you to understand or approve. I just need you to know that I lived more fully because of him, and that made me a better mother to you, even if you can never believe that. You have a brother. His name is James. I gave birth to him before I married your father. Jonathan raised him. James is a good man. He's a doctor, he has a family. He's wanted to meet you for years, but I couldn't risk it. I was a coward. I'm telling you now because I don't want secrets to survive me. I don't want you to spend years wondering who I really was. You deserve to know the truth, even if I was too afraid to give it to you while I was alive. I hope you can forgive me someday. I hope even more that you'll reach out to James. You deserve to know your brother. He deserves to know his sister. All my love, always. Mom. The letter included James's address and phone number. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Grandma had told them herself. She'd made the choice I was agonizing over. Did you know about this? Mom asked me, her voice strange and flat. This was the moment. I could lie. I could pretend I was just as shocked as they were. Instead, I told them everything. The box, the safety deposit key, the trip to Hartford and Cape May, meeting Jonathan. Melissa sitting next to me on the couch, silent but supportive. My dad got up and walked out of the room. We heard him go down to the basement. My mom just sat there, tears running down her face. I knew, she said finally. What? Not the details. Not about James. But I knew she was keeping something from us. There were all these times she'd disappear for a weekend, always with some excuse. Dad never questioned it, but I wondered. And then I'd feel guilty for wondering because she was my mother and she loved us, and who was I to question her? Mom looked at me. How long have you known? 2 weeks. And you didn't tell us. I didn't know if I should. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Well, she made that choice for you, didn't she? Mom laughed bitterly. Even from the grave, she's still controlling the narrative. We sat there for a long time. Eventually, Dad came back up, red-eyed. He sat down heavily. I need a drink, he said. Actually, I need several drinks. But first, I need to know if there's anything else. Any other secrets, any other siblings, any other lies. I thought about the hidden compartment in the jewelry box, still unopened. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. Dad nodded slowly. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit here and you're going to tell us everything you found. Every photo, every letter, every detail. And then we're going to decide, as a family, what to do next. So I did. I showed them the photos on my phone. I told them about Jonathan's house, the way he talked about Grandma, the alternate life she'd lived. I told them about the money, about the coded letters, about everything. When I finished, Mom said, I want to meet him. James. My brother. She said it with a kind of fierce determination. Mom was too much of a coward to introduce us while she was alive, but I'm not going to continue that pattern. He's my brother. I want to know him. Anne, Dad started. Don't, Mom cut him off. Don't tell me what Dad would have wanted or what's appropriate or any of that. She kept this from him, from all of us, for decades. I'm not going to keep perpetuating her secrets. Dad looked at me. What do you think? It was the first time in my adult life my father had asked my opinion on something important like I was an equal. I took a breath. I think Grandma loved us all as much as she was capable of loving anyone. I think she did the best she could in an impossible situation. And I think we honor her by being braver than she was. By making the choices she couldn't make. By meeting James, Melissa added quietly. Dad was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I need some time to process this. But yeah, eventually, we should meet him. This morning, Mom called James. I wasn't there for it, but she told me afterward that he cried. He said he'd been hoping for this moment since he was 18 years old, when he first learned the truth. He said Dorothy had talked about us all the time during their visits. What we were like. What we were doing. How proud she was of us. He's driving down from Boston next weekend. We're all meeting at a restaurant. Me, Melissa, Mom, Dad, and James. He's bringing his wife and his daughters, our cousins we never knew existed. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if we'll have anything in common besides shared DNA and a grandmother who lived 2 lives. I don't know if this will bring our family closer together or tear us further apart. But I think about what Jonathan said. She lived fully, even if she lived in divided pieces.